Oh, welcome, all you beautiful people. It is League Unlock, and you bet your bottom dollar. I'm joined by Mark. My name is Eric, and we're continuing a little bit of post-spring player rankings. It's not North America. That's done. It's not EU. That is also done. It is the LCK, a.k.a. the former greatest region on the planet. But pretty safe to say the LPL has usurped that title now.
And no longer can call it the greatest region in League of Legends. You got to be looking at it as maybe the greatest advertisement region in League of Legends. Popping out Didadunga, popping out what's up, what's up, what's up. We got some great ads coming through from Riot Korea. Unfortunately, on the international stage, not great performances from the LCK as of recent. The play from these players, 1 to 10 in every position, when you're looking at the LCK as a whole, this split, I think the level of play increased just slightly, especially at the very top. But I don't know if it's enough here to make me ever want to say that this is the year that the LCK claims that title of global powerhouse again.
But at least we can talk about the best players in the LCK and how they can stack up internationally. And when we start on that top side of the map, going 10-1 in the top lane, it is one of the bigger snubs, you might say, of the all-pro teams was not having Kana on the list after the regular season. But what T1 did and what he did specifically in the top lane against Dragon X, I think you absolutely have to have him within the top 3. And for us, we got him top 2, snuck right behind Nuguri, because as we mentioned when they announced the all-pro, Nuguri, he still has the ceiling and the potential, and we saw enough of it where he's dominant enough to be number 1. But Kana, in his first split, I think you're absolutely talking about him in the same category.
You're completely talking about him in the same category, and it's by no mistake when you look at the coaches that the two of them have had in their past. Both of them coached Kim, and the impact that Coach Kim has had for Kana, and the how fast he has expedited the potential to be reached here for Kana on this T1 roster has really been incredible. You're right, number 1 spot has to go to Naguri. Yes, there are the pitfalls and the down moments that we did see from him and Damwon this split. You still have to remember all the high highs and exactly how high those highs can reach for Naguri, because he really does show that absolutely skyrocket high ceiling that he does have on his play. But when you do talk about the top 2 in the LCK, it is pretty impressive to think of Naguri and how young he is in his career, already at number 1. And then right behind him, number 2 is Kana, the young prodigy. Really has been quite an explosive year in the top side for the LCK.
And really the entire top 4 is kind of this youth movement that you're talking about within the LCK with Rascal, Doran, Kana, and the big old wily veteran is Nuguri, who's hardly even been around for 2 years. He hasn't been around for 2 years in the LCK. So it really is this new wave of talent, not just in the top lane, but most of the positions as we get onwards with this list.
There is new blood, fresh blood making their debuts in the LCK, and a lot of them were on teams that were even towards the top end of the spectrum here, playoff caliber teams, and were making massive contributions on those playoff teams. That's why you see so much new blood in this list.
And then after all these young rookies and or not fully developed players, guys like Keen and Summit in at 5 and 6, who were perennially the top 3 right there with Nuguri. Throughout most of 2019, they were some of the best top laners in the league. Keen, less of a drop-off than Summit. Summit was just straight up subbed out and not playing a lot of these games for Sandbox, and one of the main reasons why Sandbox had an underwhelming split. I don't think Summit cannot get back to where he was before, but definitely looking at just this split alone, Keen and Summit were outperformed by these younger players.
And we had expected that Keen and Summit would be the old guard, so to speak, here towards the top of these power rankings for the LCK top laners. We expected them to continue their form and hold steady. Players like Keen at the very beginning of the split, things with the Kespa Cup, was showing us that dominating form that we know that he can be in and play to that level against the LCK's very best. We did not see that almost even close to that level this split in the regular split, and we didn't see that anywhere close to consistently reaching those levels in this split from Keen. And when you talk about Summit, exactly, major inconsistencies in his play for the Sandbox squad. Yes, a lot of that I feel is regarding the actual situation and what was going on around Sandbox with that team. but certainly got to feel some of that weight on your own shoulders here for Summit. Really expected this would be the split, that he would again solidify himself towards that top end of LCK top laners. And we got exactly the opposite here with him even being subbed out.
And for the bottom four, So1 in at number 7, him like the rest of KT absolutely bouncing back from their horrible start where it looked like he was far and away the worst top laner in the LCK. He bounced back. He's into number 7. Cuvee at number 8. He never got the chance to show off playoff buff Cuvee because Hanwha Life never got there.
No, we never saw it. This was the Cuvee that we saw a lot of last year, which is unfortunate for Hanwha. This is not the Cuvee that they were hoping that they were going to get and adding into this lineup. For Hanwha to be a playoff team, they rely upon Cuvee to step up and deliver the Cuvee performances of old, of the Samsung days. We have not seen that here in the past little bit.
Definitely not seen it enough in any case. And then Ixu, the Zillion top lane god, is in at number 9. Love seeing his Alawi, and he did step up towards the end, as did the rest of APK Prince. And you absolutely know who number 10 is going to be on this list. There's no way. Honestly, it doesn't really matter if it's Antara or Hoya. Any one of those 3 on Griffin are number 10.
If Ixu played a whole split of just Zillion top lane, maybe we could get Sword up to number 9 in the situation. Otherwise, you guys know it. You've heard us complain about it. You've heard other casters,
literally everyone, yeah,
analysts, anybody. No, it doesn't matter where you think of these people. A lot of people have told you that this play from Sword is not cutting it at the LCK level. If you can't see it, I don't know what to tell you at this point to change your mind.
I'll be shocked if we see him in summer because he'll be on a different team. Because there's no Griffin. Without Griffin management behind him.
TSM.
Oh, TSM. I will not stand for Broken Blade to be replaced by Sword or anyone, but probably won't be seeing him next split. Junglers is a fun time in the LCK because we used to have tons of world-class ones we talk about with Tarzan, Clid playing at a high level, and no question, Clid still playing at a very high level this whole split for Gen G, but he's number 2 on the list because the man that replaced him on T1 absolutely lived up to the hype and filled some pretty heavy-duty shoes that we thought wouldn't be able to be filled, but Cuz did it in one split.
Because within the first couple of weeks that you identified that this was going to be more than okay of a replacement for Clid. And that's nothing against Clid and the level of play that he brought to SKT last year and the level of play that we know that he could have brought to this T1 roster. You're talking about what Cuz did here for good reason, the way he stepped in right away. And again, a lot of people, some people were telling you, yes, you can be excited about this type of move. Cuz should be up to that caliber. A lot of people didn't expect that Cuz would be able to play to this level and what they saw from Clid last year. Full props to Cuz and the play that he brought to the Rift and for T1 and how massive of a member and, you know, how important he was alongside Faker and some of these other players making key moment plays. This was really an amazing pickup and one that worked out better than they could have imagined for T1.
And obviously outperformed Clid in that head-to-head in the finals. Another big reason to have him ahead. One of the big differences on the All-Pro team, the LCK Riot Korea had Bono in that 3rd spot. I think you still got to give the nod to Piosik, even though there were a lot of games where you could definitely see the learning curve of being a rookie, a lot more with him than we saw out of Kyria. But some of the level of play, more often than not from him, I think is absolutely warranted of being a top 3 jungler. So we got him slid into that 3rd spot, just flip-flopped him basically with Bono, who's down to 4th. And really, it's just Piosik absolutely. It doesn't really matter what some of these picks were. He really thrived on pretty much everything that's meta right now. And much like Kyria, the immediate growth and development that we saw out of him is still faster and quicker than I was expecting.
It'd be faster than I'm pretty sure than CV Max and DRX would have been expecting from Piosik. Certainly you're looking at him and his play and some of the flaws that came through towards the end and maybe being a little bit too focused on farming sometimes. It's at the wrong moments. That can be things that easily can be coached out and can be discussed about strategy-wise. These type of things can be improved, and that is the bright spot absolutely for Piosik moving into summer, is when you look at his mistakes from the spring, things that you want to go back and correct. These are things that just take some talking, some run-throughs, and some practice scrims, things like that. Nothing crazy, nothing outrageous needs to be go through with Piosik. And with a coaching staff like CV Max and the rest of DRX, you absolutely better believe that this is going to be worked on for summer. And I expect to see improvements again. And improvements for Piosik is going to be big-time buffs for the DRX squad with him in the jungle.
Now, one of the easiest guys to point a finger at for disappointments this split is Tarzan. We were talking about the best jungler in the LCK, a world-class jungler, one of the best junglers at Worlds last year. He's down to number 6, but maybe even more disappointing within the LCK split was Canyon. This was the MVP that we saw in 2019 summer. He was still a young player, but much like Piosik, his development and growth was skyrocketing so quickly. We were beginning to talk about him in the same conversation as 2019 Tarzan and Clid. Pretty sizable drop-off we saw in spring.
The decision-making and the discipline from these two players absolutely had a drop-off from what we had seen last year. And that's unexpected given these rookies and how you expect the course of development to go and how it should be handled.
And Canyon has the same team. He's got the exact same team around him.
And that's the thing is when you look at you look at these results from them, there aren't that many excuses that you can really buy into for why the results never ended up increasing or becoming what you wanted from seeing last year. Really was a disappointment on a lot of grades for the both of them this split.
And kind of sandwiched in between them actually is Spirit, who surprisingly got way more starts, almost 20 more starts than Dread. I thought it'd be closer to 50-50. I'm happy that Spirit got more of the starts. He still seems to be like a rock. Well, not the best rock. Maybe like a pebble for Africa in keeping things on track for them, but still a lot more than Dread. There were more issues than just Spirit with Africa this split.
Yeah, look, playing Spirit a lot was what we wanted to see from the Africa Freaks in this split. And yes, I think that was clearly the right move as far as the jungle is going. There were other issues with this lineup, and even Spirit himself isn't excused from those type of critiques. That he certainly wasn't perfect in his starts, but he absolutely, when you look at the Africa Freaks lineup and you look at how they play with Dread in the lineup and you look at how they play with Spirit, I tell you what, I'm picking Spirit every time.
The bottom three, no huge surprises. Flawless he was fine. He wasn't the standout player on APK, but he wasn't a huge detriment to them. Haru, you were expecting more out of him, probably getting that full-time starter role on Hanwha Life. Biggest surprise, number 10, On Fleek or Punch, either one you want to throw in. Punch actually started a lot of games for Sandbox, but On Fleek, I swear, the tilt from that SKT series from 19, it's going to last a full year. I don't know what's going on, man.
And it's really sad because you know what? We did see the flashes of greatness from On Fleek. We have seen him play at a high level before. It was right there with
Canyon and right below Tarzan and Clid.
Absolutely. And you know what has not kept that pace anywhere close to that. And when you look at the failures of Sandbox, he is a big part of why they failed so spectacularly this split.
I mean, anytime Punch is getting that many starts, obviously you're not fully confident in what's going on in that jungle spot. Now we get to the stacked positions in the LCK, starting with mid lane, where maybe the bottom half isn't as insane, but the top three, as you saw with the all-pro teams that had Faker down at third, just because of the seasons BDD and Chovy had. And even though BDD did get MVP, I know it's just one series, but even after the regular season, I wouldn't have put him first team all-pro. The way we got the top three set up is Chovy 1, Faker 2, and BDD in at third. Obviously, that top three as a whole is in another class of its own compared to the rest of the LCK.
Well, look, I was expecting BDD to finally really give us that finals performance and show up big time against Faker, put that advantage to full use. Nah, it was the opposite here. It was Faker asserting his dominance here, reminding everybody, look, you might feel pretty good. Hey, Chovy, you might be number 1 in the league unlock rankings here, but do you have your face on the side of an ice cream cone? Not a chance here. You got Faker on the cone. You got Faker climbing on top of BDD in this power rankings. You got to respect him, but you got to respect Chovy at the very top. I don't know how people look at watching Chovy and then come out of it and say, nah, he's no good. That seems to be the thing that people want to say, that he's not a faker. He doesn't stack up. Watch him in lane, man, and watch for the things that you're supposed to be looking for, and you will absolutely see that Chovy is an unreal talent and should be respected here as the number 1.
Yeah, turn on your monitors when you watch the Chovy games. I think that's the most important step, because there's no question he was the most dominant throughout the regular season, even though they lost to T1 in somewhat convincing fashion. Listen, I don't know, some of those games, Chovy's spamming crab emotes. I don't know what he's supposed to do with some of those games.
I was gonna say, if you can swing it, I know it's quite hard from a lot of other regions, but if you can swing that SKT, that 5G plan, you get that connected up, and you get yourself the pro view for the LCK. That's how it's tied in right now. So that's the only way that you're going to get to watch pro view of Chovy.
I think if you use T1, though, you are banned from watching pro view from anyone not on T1. I think that's how it works.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
Only Faker pro view.
Only. Yeah, you can't even watch the other T1 members. You want Teddy? No. You don't want to watch bot lane. Nobody wants to go down there. The next tier outside of the top 3, you have Showmaker at 4, Kuro at 5. You'd probably nestle them in as their own kind of subcategory. Very similar levels of performance. Showmaker obviously asked to do a little bit more on that Damwon roster than maybe Kuro is on KT because of how good a season Aiming had.
Yeah, and when you're looking at these players, you're absolutely right that it is this category below the elite of the elite that we have at the very top. Chovy, Faker, BDD. When you're looking at here, these type of players up next, Showmaker, you can't put them in that exact same category, obviously, given what you know about them, and let alone the performance that you saw this split. But this is by no means a bad place to land up here. If you're spotting in this chunk here of the LCK, yeah, sure, you might not be the elite of the elite, but you're still better than the majority of your counterparts around the world looking at these plays, and especially what was coming through. Yes, there's some growing pains for some players like Showmaker, and they continue to last for a lot of the split. We still see those absolute highs that we can get with these guys, the completely high ceiling potential for them. It's absolutely there.
Yeah, Showmaker still has the capability, skill set, potential to maybe get into that top 3. We've seen glimpses of him getting there. He took a slight regression in this spring split, but still absolutely having the chance to get back in the very elite of the elite. The bottom half the standings, Tempt was actually the most consistent carry on Hanwha Life, which isn't saying much when we just talked about Cube, and we'll get to the AD carry position on Hanwha, which is, it's not a good time. Cover had some great performances on APK. He's in at 7. Dove is 8 for Sandbox. And the biggest disappointment of mid laners is probably UCal on Griffin, who comes in at number 9. Didn't think he'd be that low.
Didn't expect him to be that low. And his own performance does dictate to be closer to that level. I think towards maybe the last couple of times that we saw UCal on the Rift with Griffin, I think he was starting to maybe turn it around a little bit more, have some more of those carry performances that you would have expected out of UCal getting there. But in the end, a complete disappointment on so many levels for Griffin, and specifically for UCal this year, where, look, I know that everything wasn't going well around Griffin and there's a lot of bad things in that situation. You certainly can't tell me that when you look at the games and you were watching Griffin play through, there certainly were avenues for UCal to do a little bit more, to step up more, take more control for his team, and find a pathway to maybe picking up some more victories for Griffin. So certainly his own performance and lack of control is a disappointment this split.
I did not expect this career trajectory out of him, from being so young on KT Rolster and replacing Pawn, winning an LCK title, and he was kind of on this star-studded roster, and he was kind of headlining the show in a lot of these matches, really stepping up. Thought this was the grooming and the beginning of growth of another star mid laner in the LCK. Hasn't been the case since KT. Wasn't Didn't really work out on Afrika. Doesn't seem to be working out on Griffin. Hope he gets another shot because he is still so young on a squad for the summer split.
There's more than enough there that I'm thinking if you're one of these squads in the LCK, you're looking at anywhere other than outside the top 3. I don't think it's outrageous to talk about maybe taking a chance on someone like Yuka.
And Fly all in at number 10. We know Afrika doesn't care, doesn't want to play around mid lane when they have Mystic and Keen on that roster. And the bot lane is where we move on to. 80 carries, and we've hyped up how stacked the mid lane is, but the 80 carry role to me is the most stacked position in the LCK right now. It is absolutely insane, and you're insane if you're arguing against Teddy being number 1 on the list.
Yeah, Teddy's performance, they were of a king ADC here in the LCK, and stepping up to performance every single time was asked of him. Teddy was the world beater that you asked for. This is the ADC that you were dreaming of when you picked up Teddy off of Jin Air. This is what you'd been talking about. This is what you've been hyping up. These are the performances that you had been dreaming of, and Teddy delivering them this split for T1 all the way to the championship. That is absolutely a feel-good moment, especially when you consider Teddy and Faker before this split were the only ones that you had locked up for any type of long term. So that is clearly the 2 players that T1 wanted to identify and build around for this roster. And they absolutely showed up to help them achieve the championship this split.
And when you're talking about how stacked these roles are, how fantastic Teddy played, isn't it insane to have Aiming at number 2? He was so close to capturing an MVP, far and away the best split we've seen out of him. He performed so well, we're putting him ahead of guys like Deft, guys like Ruler, and for what he did for KT, he was the most featured and prominent AD carry on any of the 10 teams in the LCK this split, and he delivered time and time again.
I want someone on KT staff here. They got to find a way to Photoshop Misfortune, and they got Aiming to put his arm around Misfortune, because that is absolutely how he found his way to the very top here. So much power with that power pick, the MF coming through for him. That was the key one for KT. Yes, he did have some other standout performances. You can't get to this spot on just one champion, but he certainly did a pretty damn good amount of numbers on that Misfortune this split. That was the big one for the KT roster side. Look, there's no denying that Aiming completely stepped up, and you look at where KT finished in the standings, you cannot deny that Aiming has to be this high up, given how hard he just carried.
And how many comps were completely built around him, whether it was 4 tanks in the Ezreal or a Zilli and Yumi to pair with the Misfortune. He delivered. 3-4, you go Deft and Ruler. Ruler did not have to put on the big boy carry pants. All of a sudden, Gen G is a mid-jungle team, which they haven't been basically as long as maybe Crown and Ambition in 2017. But not since then.
Not since then, and not to the level that it was at. This split certainly feels nice for Ruler, not having to be the big dog all the time, pulling the team across the finish line. Got to chill and relax. Maybe relaxed a little bit too much here, finding himself outside the top 3, but that just is a situation I think of our top 3 stepping up and delivering those performances is why I think he finds himself really outside of it. But certainly room to improve still for Ruler, and room to become that big threat that we still all know and respect him as in the LCK.
The biggest surprise for me, at least, and in a positive way, is Hybrid on APK. APK as a whole were a big surprise to me with how well they performed, but Hybrid, so many of these games, he was the standout player. You talk about rookies, when you have Kyria, Priosic, Kana, you have to mention Hybrid in the same conversation as them. I know it's kind of a overlooked and overrated stat when you're actually getting a pentakill because you're just last hitting in team fights, but this dude as a rookie got 3 of them in his debut split. I gotta recognize that. That's insane.
Yeah. Hold on. And as you said, sometimes just as the luck of the draw, the way things line up here that you're managing to pick it up, you do that 3 times in the same split. I'll give you maybe 2 of them chalked up to flukes. There's no way that you're not doing something special here to put yourself either A, in those situations, or B, to clean up those type of situations. So you certainly got to give your props to Hybrid. What he was able to do this split with APK, definitely deserving the tip of the cap.
Unless you're a world-class AD carry who's been around for years, you don't get 3 pentakills in your career. Faker doesn't have 3 pentakills. There you go. Hybrid greater than
insane.
Faker.
Yeah, but remember, you can talk to me when Hybrid gets his own ice cream cone advertisement. Then we can talk.
Well, I'm actually in talks with his team to start marketing one, so we'll be talking again very soon. 6 and 7, you got Mystic. He came out of the gates burning, on fire, was looking fantastic. He was still consistent and an upgrade overall, I think, for Afrika, but not quite what we saw in the early levels. And then Ghost in at number 7. 7, you might say, listen, you guys were praising Ghost, saying he was a big upgrade the whole time. If we had Nuclear, he's on 9 or 10. So Ghost was absolutely an upgrade. But like I said, the top 6 is insane in the LCK.
The problem that Ghost really runs into here is not only did he not have as many games here to really prove himself and put together those big performances, just runs into the position where everybody was proving their worth and really stepping up for their squads. There's no way that you can really look at the amount of games that he put under his belt and look at the performances that he had and rank him any higher than this, given the performances and numbers of games that everyone played above him on this list. Certainly nothing against Ghost, and this is one where look at Ghost here at number 7 on this list and keep track of that as we move into the summer, rankings before the split starts and as we get into the final post-summer split rankings, because that is going to be a growth that I'm really excited to watch here, because you better believe that Ghost is going to keep climbing in our list if he keeps playing to the level that he was at the end of the split.
Another guy who I fully expect to climb higher in summer is Viper. We have him at number 8, and listen, he's better than that. You just didn't really get to see it on this Griffin roster. He just didn't fully have the opportunities to take over some of these games. He was still probably the most consistent player on that Griffin roster because Tarzan would just disappear for games at a time. But listen, as an AD carry in pro play, sometimes you can't do much.
You're looking at this one and you're certainly realizing 2 things here. One, you probably had to give maybe a little bit more credit for the results that Griffin had in that bottom lane to Lehens during his time alongside Viper. But certainly is that one that you're talking about, that Viper is a player with so much potential and skill still left to be tapped here and to add to our roster. And you're looking at what's going to be happening with Griffin now in relegation. There's no way someone doesn't snatch Viper up and say, this is the project that we want to be building around in our bottom side. There's way too much potential, and it's only one really not down split here to say that you're going to give up on someone like Viper.
If only there was a team that had a disaster trio of a bot lane and who already had some inherent synergy with Viper on that bot side, because Hanwha Life deserves to be number 10 for AD carries. We alluded to it earlier. It didn't matter if it was Vista, Zenit, Lava with the role swap. He eventually just went back mid for a couple of games. It didn't matter which 3 were starting. They were the worst AD carry in the LCK, and it just makes it all that much more sad that we didn't get Viper coming over to Hanwha Life with his pal Lehens, because then all of a sudden, okay, you got one of the better bot lanes in the entire LCK.
Very different story if Viper had made that trip over. When you're looking at Hanwha, we already talked about the disappointments of not having Cube get anywhere close to the level of play that you required out of him, putting him on that
better
contract.
than Sword.
Better than Sword, but this is one of those situations where you looked at the Hanwha Life bot lane, and it was like watching Sword in a sense, where you're looking at this and you're looking at them compared to the competitors on the other side, and it's clearly a mismatch at this level, and one that at this level for longer than a split, I don't think is an acceptable answer to have as your bottom lane at this high of a level for the LCK. Challenger scene, I can understand, but at the LCK right now, this performance isn't cutting it.
Listen, Lehens and Viper both at times looked like they were trapped in ELO hell. Why not walk through the lava together, guys? Just
Perfect.
Just embrace it all as a team. As we go to those supports, we have Lehens talking about stuck in ELO hell. We have him 3rd. He's in the top 3 because individually, when you look at him, you still saw the moments where he was a key playmaker for the squad and at times the only playmaker on that Hanwha Life roster.
And shout out to all the boomers out there. Lahans is the one carrying that torch here. He says, hey, just because we're old, just because we're getting close to 30, come on, that's boomer in video game terms.
Yeah.
Just because we're getting pretty close to there doesn't mean that we still can't hit our keys. Still doesn't mean that we can't have for a minute. We can be doing it. We can be prime players. And that is exactly what Lahans brought to the table for Hanwha Life. A real disaster from the ADC position for them. And still, we're talking about Lahans and how much he still shined and proved his worth himself. That absolutely has got to speak volumes into what he does as a support and what his true value should be for a team that's competitive, because unfortunately, that's not Hanwha Life.
Not this split, and maybe not next split either. But you got to talk about the couple of lads ahead of him, starting with the man who got the first team All-Pro nods, rookie of the split, Kyria for Dragon X. Solo queue God absolutely has lived up to the hype. I feel like it's been a long time since we've seen a support willing to go for these crazy mechanical plays. It feels like 2 years since we've seen a support in the LCK doing this stuff.
As you said, that's really the special thing when you're watching Kyria play is, yes, there's other things that are going to have to come for him, given his inexperience on the big stage and the inexperience just with the pro game as a whole scene. This is where the growth is going to have to happen. When you're talking mechanically, nah, that's not where the growth is going to happen. This man is absolutely at the very top, completely stunting, fooling people around in the LCK. Some of the plays that he is making mechanically are just so unbelievably hard and also require the absolute timing and confidence to pull them off. And he is making them for this DRX squad as a rookie even more impressive.
And quick shout out for the man behind him in effort for T1. He's had some incredible growth over his time on T1. And just take a moment. This guy, sub player on the biggest organization of all time. You come in 2019 and say, hey, you mind starting over the greatest support of all time? Talk about the amount of pressure that he's been on since his starting career started on SKT.
And he just gets even more comfortable as time goes on with this T1 roster.
And more vocal.
The biggest thing that Right, that's the biggest thing that we've always talked about with effort is the playmaking is there, the macro sense, a lot of things are very good here. And we always loved how well he communicated with the team. And even more so this split, that communication has gotten louder and has become a bigger part of how they communicate and decide on what they're going to be doing in these games. Effort has really put himself as a foothold and a strong player for this T1 roster. And yet we talked about Faker, Teddy, those are the two building blocks that you had signed and you wanted to be building around. The next player up on that list that they signed, of course, was effort, identifying that this is the bottom lane. This is the duo that we need to be keeping for our success. Locked effort up. And I tell you what, very good decision.
I forgot he also got to step in for Wolf in the 2018 forgettable years for T1, but he also had to replace Wolf, who was at time one of the greatest supports.
T1's most legendary support, and then next, the most legendary support. Yeah. So pretty good stepping up for effort, taking over for those two.
Big shoes that he's been filling his whole career. Number 4, you have Life, the buddy of Ruler. We were wondering why Kellen was getting so much playing time, but Life did end up getting more. Seems to be the right choice. Even last year, him and Ruler seemed to work well. And Tucson in at number 5. He died a lot less. He died a lot less this split. So credit to Tucson. When the AD carry is so prominent, just protect him. That's it. Just make sure you die instead of aiming.
Say that. I don't know if it's more so as much of Tucson really changing or the fact that KT has now got an ADC that is backing up on the engages that Tucson makes. We've talked about this many times with him. Tucson is absolutely a playmaking engage type of support. He's the guy that wants to be going in. And if he's going in and the ADC is not there to back up on the damage, well, that's one hell of a dead support. And that was happening a lot last year. This year, not so much. Aiming is there. Aiming's there to double up, dish out there, and even right click. It doesn't matter how you want him to do it. He's going to find a way to dish out that damage. And his support partner, Tucson, you better believe that he's the one making that charge in.
He also gets to be a lot tankier with a lot of these fasting Senate comps. When he has CS on the Tom Kench, oh boy, he's even harder to take down. Barrel in at number 6. I think he's pretty consensus been the better support than Hoyt. That's why he started so many more games. He had to deal with Ghost coming in as a starting AD carry. Did pretty well playing with the new bot lane partner. Gorilla's in at number 7. I just hope it's not the last we've seen of him this split with Sandbox, because truly one of the, 3 greatest supports of all time, probably.
Yeah, and so it's going to be really exciting to see how that one splits up. Look, the support position in the LCK, as we've talked about, all these other ones, absolutely at the very top, has some complete standout players. And one of the really bright things is, yes, obviously Lehens is our resident boomer here, holding things down for us old guys. Everyone else is a young stud for the most part here, ready to keep going with their career, keep building, and keep learning. And especially in the support position, learning more and being able to put that knowledge into the game is absolutely something that can exponentially make your value increase. And
for the rest of the support rankings, you've got Jelly, iRove, and Secret. Biggest question mark for me is, we going to see Wadid in 2020? Is he casting? Is he playing? Because if he's playing, you might put him higher than those bottom 3.
Absolutely. And that's one thing that, again, Wadid's reaction to trying to put all the blame on Griffin not making it through on his own shoulders makes it even more crazy, because you look at these supports and you look at what play, even in the relegation series that Wadid brought to the table and what Wadid can bring to the table, rank him higher than that. And that's not just because Wadid's my boy and I got him tight, of course, but my boy Wadid definitely higher on this list if he was going to be going through. And when you're looking at what's going on with Griffin and how things are shaping up, I really hope one of these squads takes a look at Wadid and adding him in, because not only from the gameplay and everything else, I promise you, as the person adding into your dynamics of a team, you're only going to like each other more and get along better.
These rankings are going to look a whole lot different when we do them leading into summer. No Griffin. Where does Tarzan go? Where does Viper go? Does Wadid come back? Team dynamics come in as the newest team in the LCK, so there'll be a lot of new faces, maybe in some different places when we head into the summer split to redo these rankings. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is all for today on League Unlocked. Mark's got the wave going, which means it's time to get out of here. Mark and Eric, as always, hanging out with you guys. Thanks for catching up, and we will catch you on the flippity flop.